I changed his mother's diapers while he slept in the same bed as mine. No scream, no glass breaking, no drama, just that sentence, whispered to myself in the silence of a kitchen where I had cooked 3 meals a day for a man who never once asked me how I was really doing. My name is Claire. I used to believe that loyalty could fix everything, that if you gave more, forgave more, endured more, love would somehow find a way back. That was before I realized some people don't leave because they stopped loving you. They leave because they know you'll survive the wreck while they escape clean. He and I met in college. You know the type. The charming one with crooked smiles and just enough trauma to make you feel special for staying. I stayed. Even when he forgot anniversaries. Even when his jokes made bruises that never showed. Even when he told me I was too sensitive for crying after my miscarriage. Still, I stayed. Because we had a daughter. Because we had bills. Because we had a couch where I had once dreamed our forever. And because his mother, his aging, fragile mother, was diagnosed with a stroke that left her unable to speak. Guess who fed her, bathed her, sang to her when she forgot who she was? Me. While he worked late, while he turned off his location, while I defended him to everyone, including my own mother. But some cracks don't show until you stop cleaning the glass. And the day I stopped wiping away his excuses was the day I found the first dirty fingerprint. On a phone call I was never supposed to hear. She used to call me sweetheart. His mother, I mean, back when her hands were steady enough to slice apples in the kitchen, when she still wore pearls to Sunday brunch and asked me how I wanted to decorate the nursery, before everything fell apart. I wasn't just her daughter-in-law, I was her nurse, her caretaker, her last tether to dignity. She lost her words after the second stroke. She'd sit by the window for hours, blinking slowly as if trying to remember how to say thank you. But I didn't need her to say it. I brushed her hair. I changed her adult diapers. I fed her with a spoon. And I whispered stories to her, about her son, about the house, about the days when she ruled it all. What I didn't say was that her son hadn't been home in 4 nights. That I was the one tucking her into bed while he traveled for business without a suitcase. At first, I told myself not to worry. He's just stressed, I whispered. He'll come around. Maybe he's just not good at grief. And truthfully, part of me was grateful he wasn't there. Because when he was, he barked orders, never stayed to help. He said her smell made him nauseous. He told me I was playing the martyr. And maybe I was. Maybe somewhere deep down, I thought if I became indispensable, if I carried the weight of his absence gracefully, he'd notice and come back softer. But the only thing that came back were the empty pill bottles I kept refilling for his mother while the man they raised never showed up. The first real shift came from my own mother. She asked me one afternoon, "Do you trust him, Claire?" I laughed, too loud, too fake. "Of course I do, Mom. He's just going through a lot." She looked at me the way only a mother can, with pity disguised as patience. That was the first crack. But I brushed it off, like I always did, until the next night. It was 10:14 p.m. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, nursing a heating pad on my lower back from lifting his mother out of the tub. He wasn't answering texts. Again. I scrolled through old photos, trying to remind myself who we used to be, and then my phone buzzed. It was a FaceTime call. From my mom. She sounded shaky. "I didn't want to bother you, Claire, but something's wrong with the cameras at my place." Her voice was soft, like she was afraid of hearing herself speak. "The backyard lights keep flickering, and there's this smell, like cologne." I told her I'd check the security feed. We had installed smart cameras for her last year. I opened the app. The cameras were offline, all of them. I felt something cold settle in my chest, something ancient, something my body knew before my brain could name it. He had visited her that day. I knew that. He'd told me. Said he was dropping off supplements she liked. But the timing, the sudden malfunction, the smell of cologne at 10 p.m., it all felt like smoke. And when you smell smoke long enough, you stop pretending there's no fire. The next morning, he came home. No explanation, no apology, just breakfast. He made eggs. as if making eggs erased the smell on his jacket or the lipstick I noticed, one shade too pink to be mine. I didn't say anything, not yet. I just handed him a mug of coffee and asked, "How was Mom's place?" He froze, half a second too long. And in that silence, something shattered, not loud, not messy, just final, but I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. Because confronting him meant unraveling everything, and at that moment my priority was keeping his mother alive. I wiped the lipstick off his collar and told myself it was probably nothing. But even as I scrubbed, I knew I was cleaning up a lie that would lead me to a truth I would never unsee. 3 days later, I stopped asking where he was, not because I stopped caring, but because I started investigating. I didn't need answers, I needed proof. There's something terrifying about a woman who's done doubting herself. She doesn't raise her voice. She raises the mirror. I waited until he left again. Late meeting, as always, and pulled out the box of receipts I had never dared to check. Gas station charges in neighborhoods he didn't live near. Flower orders that never arrived at our house. And then, finally, an Uber history that led me straight to my mother's address. Not once, not twice, 7 times, all after 9 p.m., all within the past 6 weeks. I called my mom. "Hey, I was thinking I'd drop by tonight, just wanted to see you." Her voice trembled for just a second too long. "Now? I have a bit of a headache, sweetie. Maybe tomorrow?" The way she said sweetie, like she was trying to remember how to pronounce the word. I waited until 8:45 p.m., then drove in silence. I parked 3 houses down, cut the engine, let the darkness wrap around me like a question I already knew the answer to. The lights were on in her kitchen, shadows moved behind the curtain. I saw him first, his silhouette, pacing, laughing. Then I saw her, in a silk robe I'd given her for Mother's Day, handing him a wine glass, touching his arm like it belonged to her. And in that moment, I felt every cell in my body freeze, then burn. My own mother, the woman who held me when I was 8 and afraid of storms, who helped me pick my wedding dress, who told me love required work, but never said whose. She was kissing my husband in the kitchen I grew up in, feeding him in the house where she once fed me. And worse, she looked happy. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stood there, watching 2 people I loved erase me with every sip of wine. I drove home like a ghost, not fast, not slow, just numb. When I opened the door, his mother was asleep on the couch, still breathing, still broken. And I hated him not for the cheating, but for making me feel guilty for being the one still taking care of his mother while he took care of mine. I sat at the foot of the bed and stared at the wall. I thought about all the women who get cheated on and still have to wake up and make breakfast, still have to iron shirts and hide tears under foundation, still have to smile in family photos next to the very people who shattered them. But I wasn't going to pretend. Not anymore. The next night, I invited them both to dinner. Yes, both. I didn't warn them. I cooked the same meal I'd made for our first anniversary, set the table like it mattered. He arrived first, loosened his tie, kissed my cheek like habit. She came in 20 minutes later, surprised, flustered, said she thought it was just us girls. I smiled. "Oh, it's a family dinner, isn't that what we are?" They sat, a bit too far apart, like guilt had taught them geometry. I poured the wine. Small talk floated like steam above plates no one touched. Then I picked up the remote, turned on the TV, and played the security footage from my mom's hallway. Time-stamped, clear, undeniable. The 2 of them, hand in hand, walking past a baby photo of me on the wall. No one spoke. He dropped his fork. She gasped, then reached for me like I was still her daughter. I stood, no screaming, no crying, just this. "You both lied to me," but I raised myself. I walked upstairs, packed a bag, kissed my daughter's forehead, and never looked back. They say healing isn't linear, that grief comes in waves, but for me, it didn't feel like waves. It felt like walking barefoot through a house still on fire, pretending I didn't notice the smoke clinging to my clothes. The first morning after I left, I woke up on Tanya's couch, my best friend since 8th grade. She didn't ask for details. She just made coffee the way I liked it. extra cream, 2 sugars, and put my favorite blanket over my legs like it was armor. I looked out her window and cried, not because I missed him, but because I realized no one had ever made me coffee without wanting something back. I didn't tell my daughter the truth, not all of it. I said we were taking a girls' break, that we'd stay with Aunt Tanya for a while, have sleepovers and popcorn and paint nails on weeknights. She was only 5, and yet she looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Is Daddy sleeping at Grandma's now?" I didn't answer. I just kissed her forehead and whispered, "Mommy's not sleeping through anything anymore." Days blurred into weeks. I got a job, part-time at first, filing papers at a legal clinic. That's where I met Hannah. She was the kind of woman who wore heels like weapons and smiled like she'd seen too much and didn't care anymore. She saw me fumbling with a copy machine one afternoon and said, "You look like someone who's trying not to scream." I laughed, for the first time in weeks. Turns out she was a divorce attorney, and a damn good one. But more than that, she was kind. The quiet kind. The kind who helps you breathe without asking why you stopped. One day, she asked if I was ready to file. I hesitated. Not because I had doubts, but because once you put something in writing, it becomes real. I looked at my daughter who was playing with crayons on the office floor. She had drawn a picture of 3 people, 2 women, 1 child, no man. I nodded. Let's do it. The paperwork was clinical, but the process wasn't. There were emails, phone calls, gaslighting texts from him, begging for another chance, accusing me of tearing the family apart. And then there was the letter from my mother, handwritten, folded neatly in an envelope that smelled like lavender and guilt. She said she was lonely, that she didn't mean to fall in love, that she thought he would eventually come back to me, as if betrayal was something you could just reroute. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because some wounds only close when left alone. One Sunday, months later, my daughter and I went to the farmer's market. We passed a booth that sold old books. She picked up a copy of Charlotte's Web and said, "This one's about someone who saves you just by being there." I bought it, for both of us. That night, she fell asleep on my lap while I read aloud. And in the quiet, I realized something. I wasn't healing because I was strong. I was healing because I had finally stopped watering dead gardens. Tanya helped me find a small apartment. It had peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, but the sunlight in the kitchen hit different. It didn't feel like a mansion. It felt like mine. I let my daughter paint the bedroom walls lavender. She got more paint on herself than the wall, but when she finished, she looked at me and said, "It's not perfect, but it's happy." I laughed, and this time I didn't cry after. Every day I reclaimed something, my name, my smile, my reflection. I started journaling again, started dancing while brushing my teeth, started saying no without apologizing. And when the divorce was finalized, I didn't throw a party. I lit a candle. I sat in silence. And I whispered, "Thank you for showing me who I'm not." Because here's the truth. I didn't lose a husband. I lost a man who was never really mine. And I didn't lose a mother. I lost the illusion that love always comes from blood. But what I gained? Peace, space, and the quiet, terrifying joy of starting over on my own terms. It had been 10 months. 10 months since the last lie. 10 months since the last apology I didn't ask for. 10 months since I stopped sleeping with one eye open. And I was okay, not perfect, not healed, but okay. In the way wildflowers are okay, growing sideways through cracks no one expected to hold life. The email came on a Thursday. Subject: estate planning, urgent. It was from her lawyer, my mother's. Apparently she'd had a fall, broke her hip, was being moved into assisted living, and she wanted to see me, one last time. I stared at the screen for a full hour. My hands didn't shake. They didn't need to. Some wounds don't bleed when you reopen them. They just sigh. I didn't go out of guilt. I went because I needed to see it, the ruins, to prove to myself that walking away didn't mean I was still running. When I entered her room, she looked smaller. The woman who once rearranged my furniture without asking now couldn't reach her water cup. Her hair was thin, her eyes foggy. But when she saw me, something sparked, a flicker of recognition, maybe regret, maybe just memory. She didn't say much, didn't cry. She just looked at me and whispered, "He left too." I nodded. Didn't ask who he was, didn't need to. She looked down at her blanket. I was afraid of being alone. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest she'd ever come. And that had to be enough. So I said the one thing I knew she needed more than forgiveness. You're not alone. Then I stood, kissed her forehead, and left. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. 3 weeks later, I got a text. From him. No hi, no how are you. Just, I saw your daughter at the park. She looks happy. I stared at the message like it was a pebble someone threw into a canyon expecting it to echo. I didn't reply, but I opened my camera roll and looked at the picture I'd taken that day. She was on the swing, laughing so hard her eyes had disappeared into joy. She was free, and so was I. 6 months later, I bumped into him. At a grocery store. He looked tired, older, alone. He walked over like nothing happened, like time erased what truth had carved. He smiled. You look good, Claire. I looked him dead in the eye and said, so do I. Then I walked past him, not out of pride, not out of anger, but because I had eggs to buy and a life to live. Some endings don't come with slamming doors. They come with soft closures, with deep breaths in quiet aisles, with women who no longer set themselves on fire to keep others warm. Epilogue. 1 year later, on my daughter's 6th birthday, she made a wish and blew out her candles. I asked her what she wished for. She said, I wished that you'll always smile when you tuck me in. I smiled, because I knew something she didn't. I wasn't just smiling, I was finally alive. She didn't burn bridges, she simply learned to swim. If you believe silence can be stronger than screams, subscribe to Beyond Boundaries now, because the loudest truths are often whispered.